Hey, I'm here with my friend today, Mike Howard from Hulk Addicts. Excited to share his story. Check it out. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Mike, welcome to the show, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Well, it's been a while. We've been talking about this for a minute. We've both been busy.
Been busy, that's for sure.
You got a busy family, successful business. And I was just thinking back when you came in, we fired up some coffee.
Yeah.
Our stories connected, 5-6 years ago?
Probably something like that, yeah.
You know, I was volunteering on a church security team, and they had police officers coming in just to do, some extra hours. And they're like, hey, meet Mike.
Yep.
And you were selling insurance.
I was selling insurance on the side.
Yep.
So.
And I think it was a slow Saturday night. There wasn't much on the security side going on. So we were, I think, drinking coffee.
Probably drinking coffee,
eating donuts.
Maybe. I don't know about that.
But you shared, you started sharing your story a little bit. So kind of lead us up to, law enforcement was a big part of your life.
Yeah.
You've since transitioned out of that. But just kind of take us up to speed as to, how you got to where you are today and then a big transition, because a lot's happened through that and since that I want to jump into with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's been a big transition. I was a law enforcement for a total of 16 years from, 2005 all the way up until 2014. Worked for a couple different agencies. I worked in Virginia for 9 years, did quite a few different assignments there, and needed to make a transition, a different move, and felt like that God was calling us to a different location. Me and the wife were, ready for a change in pace and a different location. And she has family down in Colorado Springs. So a buddy of mine worked out here at Fort Collins, and the rest was history. I decided to make the move. Took me about almost a year to make that full transition. And we moved out here and started working for Fort Collins and was there for 7 years, working law enforcement, worked a lot of night shifts, things like that. And kind of a long story short, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but, I decided it was time to go ahead and retire and give that up. I'd started a business and knew that chapter of my life was done with. So was able to retire, hang up the badge, hang up the gun, and move on from that. So
leading up to that, when did you touch down in Fort Collins? Was it 2012?
2014, June of 2014.
Okay.
Yep. So it's when I moved out here. I left the other agency in June of 2014 and transitioned right over to Fort Collins and went into the academy, their mini academy there. And so I ended up going into the academy and then came out and worked there about 7 years and then decided to retire in June of 2021.
And what was there a big catalyst for that? Was it many things? I mean, law enforcement started going through and having just a lot of struggles, a lot of different public perception. And we talked a lot about those kind of things. Sure. What were some of the things for you that made you decide to hang that badge up? There
was quite a few things. And actually it kind of started December 22nd of 19. My wife was in a really bad car crash. She was hit head on by a drunk driver on I-25. Her and a friend had gone down to a concert down in Denver. Drunk driver was in their oncoming lane, hit them head on. So she was in the hospital for a total of 31 days. She didn't walk for almost 3 months. Took a lot of time off from work because of that. Being that we, had that bad incident that happened, there was a lot of bills that were adding up. So in January of 21, actually December of 20, I started thinking about doing something different or thinking about how to make some extra money because COVID had hit. We didn't have a whole lot of extra overtime at the police department, working off-duty jobs and things. So I decided to try to do something different. And so I started looking into, I had a truck and a trailer. So I decided, hey, why don't I try something different? And told my wife, I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to start a junk removal business. And she's like, whatever.
What are you talking about?
She's like, you're crazy. So, and I probably was, a little bit. And decided to make the leap and start this junk removal business. I had a truck and a trailer. A buddy of mine needed a couch out. So the wheels just started turning. So January 7th of 21, Hulk Addicts was born. And I did a video, launched it on Facebook, and just started putting out there what I was doing. And the rest was kind of history. We just working hard for several months and realized by month 2, I'd matched my salary at the police department and was like, hey, I could do this full time.
Hold on, two months.
2 months. Yep.
Launching a business. You've matched what you
were making.
Spent 16 years at that point, 15 years making?
Yeah, per month. I was making about the same amount that I was making per month as what I was doing at the police department. And I was like, man, this is good money. It's an opportunity to grow. Of course, I approached my wife and she's like, you're crazy. We're not ready to do that yet. And just kind of kept going. I'd spoken to several realtors. I think I'd actually even spoken to you about the things I was doing and the services I was going to offer. And we just started partnering with a bunch of realtors, property management companies, and the business just took off, March, April. And by end of April, the wheels really started turning. I could do it full time. It's like, I think I can make this work. The wife's like, just hold on a little bit longer. And we both came into agreement at the same time that I was like, hey, I'm telling realtors I'm 2 weeks out and that before I can get to their job. And that's not, most of the time they call you in an emergency. So you got to get things done right away. I always use the adage that they want it done yesterday.
Realtors always do, man. There's always a time crunch and a deadline. We were just talking about that the other day. It's like everything needs to be done like yesterday, as quickly as possible.
Yep. And so we knew that there was a need there. And there's other junk removal companies, but we wanted to do something and bring something different to this area that no other junk removal company had really done, and provide a service that was way better than anybody else's. And that was our goal and our intention with that. And we decided about May that we were going to put my letter in, and went talked to my sergeant, pulled her aside and said, hey, I'm going to retire after 16 years. I gave up all the training and the car and the take-home car, all the uniforms were provided, all the vacation time, all the stuff that comes along with it, and realized I was ready to be done. So I got to retire. All I needed was 10 years tenure between the two agencies, and I had that. So I was able to retire, and left in, I think it was June the 13th of 21. So less than 5 months. I started a business and left a almost $100,000 a year job.
I was going to say, they're not paying peanuts at that department.
They're paying
You're paying well.
Yeah, and they're making more than that, I think, now. But it was, at the time, I was making almost $100,000 a year, and it was a lot to lose. It was a lot to give up. But I knew that I was a cliff jumper. I was someone that could jump off the cliff, and I felt like I had a good backup plan, and knew that I could do it. And if I fall on my face, I'll pick myself back up and keep moving on. So.
And had you lost the love for law enforcement at that point? Just everything, I think back to a lot of the conversations I have, and you have those stories of like, you have great encounters where you help people, you serve people, they're thankful that you're there. Then there's some where they're just not. Yeah. And they're not appreciative of you, and they're never going to be.
Yep.
So where were you at with that? Was it bittersweet, or were you just happy to be done?
I think I'd mentally started preparing even before I started the business, probably 2 to 3 months before that. I already kind of mentally was getting to a place where I was kind of done with that side of, service. I just felt like it's just the way things were going. I felt like I wasn't able to help people the way that I used to be able to do with the changes in the laws, some of the restrictions that the state and even the country were putting on law enforcement, the scrutiny. I was a great officer. I did some great things. I knew I was just done. I just ready to move on from that, and didn't realize the toll that it had taken on my family. My son, who's now 14 at the time, was about 12 when I left the law enforcement. He pulled my wife aside and says, man, I'm just glad Dad didn't have to work anymore at nighttime, and he'd be up at night and things like that. So, and we're really tight. We're close, very close together. My daughter's a little bit younger, but he was really close. We're still very close. And I was like, man, I'm glad I made that decision. I haven't looked back since. I mean, people ask me all the time, do I miss it? Is it, a good thing you left, or would you ever want to go back? And I don't ever want to go back. I'm done. It's just, I knew that was a chapter that had closed in my life, that, I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud of everything that I did. I don't have any regrets about anything that I did there, after 16 years, but there was just no way that I could keep going the way that, it was going. So it was just ready to be done. And this is something that I felt like this door opened for us, that it was just, it's still just been opening. There's a lot of things that have happened since then that just continue to open and build, and we're still growing this company, and I'm just excited to see where this thing goes. And so I knew that when one door closes, another one opens, and it just opened wide open for us to make that jump. And I talked with Rob, who's my business development manager, about being a cliff jumper, and that's just what we are. We just take chances and go after it, set some goals, and just go for them. So that's kind of what's happened so far. So
you literally have an idea, move a buddy's couch, January. 5 months later, you're putting in your resignation letter, and then talk just about the trajectory and the growth of the company since then. And then I want to jump back, because you mentioned a couple things we can't pass over, the car accident and just some other things I want to jump into. But just talk about that business journey of how it's grown and where it's at today, and then where you see it going from there.
So right now, when we first started, I started with an F-150, a 2000 F-150, and a 5x utility trailer I used to pull a four-wheeler with back in the day. And I still had that trailer. It's an old beater trailer, but it worked. And so I started moving things with that little trailer, would pile couches and mattresses, you name it, went on that trailer. I had to get big house clean outs, and we would have to borrow Rob's, actually, his horse trailer or stock trailer, he calls it. We'd have to borrow that to do some of our bigger clean outs. And then, so that first, when I left in June, not even a month later, I had a car crash. A guy rear-ended the back of I bought a dump trailer at that point. I bought a 5x10 dump trailer. It's from first dump trailer I bought for the business. I got rear-ended, totaled my truck, had to get the trailer repaired. So, of course, here I just leave this job of security and I get rear-ended. And I'm like, man, this is a tough deal. But luckily we were able to work through that. I bought another truck and ended up buying a bigger dump trailer. And then a year later, we bought another big dump trailer. And then right now we have three trucks, 6 trailers, and 10 roll-off dumpsters for the business right now. Everything from dump trailers to utility trailers. We even have a flatbed trailer now that we can use for the business. And then we also have all the roll-off stuff as well. And an enclosed trailer, we do demolition. So we got the demo trailer. So the business just started every year. Like, it just continued to grow. I added my first person onto the business in November of 21. Mm-hmm. So I added my first full-time employee. And then I added a couple more the following year in 2022. Now, right now we have 3 full-time employees, myself and a couple guys that help me on the side. And then we also have just, some people that will help us on some of the demo jobs and just different clean outs and things like that. So definitely the trajectory for the next few years is definitely going in the right direction, I think. We're looking to expand services and then expand locations as well. So I say in the next 5 years, I'm hoping we'll definitely be much bigger than the Northern Colorado area, is my goals. And I'm hoping that's going to probably be in the next few months. So we'll see what happens.
There's junk everywhere. You just hauled some stuff away from our house.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. We tore that fence out. So yeah.
How do you, so, I mean, I look at it from a face value, just a consumer, right? It's junk. I just want you to get it out of here.
Yeah.
And you've got the big franchise companies and the big names and everything. Yeah. And then you start to see a lot of these companies pop up, but how do you differentiate? Like, what does that look like for you? You mentioned that was really important to you coming into this industry.
Yeah.
Is to provide a service that's not in there. So like, what's lacking in the industry, and what do you guys do that differentiates you?
Well, I think so. Our slogan, and I'll kind of go to this real quick, is our slogan is we get the junk out of your life. And junk can be a lot of different things. It could be, obviously the material things, but I think a lot of times that those material things bring a lot of baggage, whether it's family memories, it's all those types of things that can come along, with that, whether a family member dies, has to move into assisted living. So what our goal is to help people through that process and understand that those items, not in every case, obviously, some cases are different. It's just a bunch of trash or whatever else, but sometimes it's stuff that people have held onto for a long time and it's really difficult for them to get rid of. And I think that our compassion and the way that we approach our customers, we recently just did a big clean out for one of our customers. She's a dispatcher and in another city, but we just did a clean out for her where family had to leave the house. They went to go in assisted living and it was a lot of stress on her and her sister. And it was just a really tough situation. And we were able to come in and get a lot of this stuff out that was causing a lot of stress for them. And I think the compassion that I'm able to portray, my guys are able to portray, and, I think it really starts from the top down. And I'm not, bragging on myself, but I really try to tell my guys of how important this stuff is to take care of these people and make sure we show them that compassion and that love that they need, and they really need a lot of help. And we're able to bring that service you're not going to get with these bigger box companies. And I'm not dogging them because, some of these companies have paved the way for us smaller guys to be able to get into this industry.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. But I think just the way that we do that and the service aspect, we don't want one and done customers. We want customers that are repeat customers. We want customers that not only repeat, but they refer. Yeah. All the things you do in business. And I think that's been the biggest thing for us is trying to portray that to customers. We're not just a junk trunk company running around here with a bunch of trailers picking up their stuff. We take that time with them every time we go to those jobs. So
now, did you have that kind of vision and laser focus when it was 2021 and you're like, hey, I'm going to go move a buddy's couch in a small little trailer? Did that kind of build over time? Like, when was that moment that you realized that there's you're talking about a greater purpose and a greiter why? And I know your faith plays a big role in that too, that we'll talk about. So when did that come about, or was it like that from the beginning?
I think it started from the beginning, but I didn't really develop that until probably several months later. I think March of 21 was that was a big transition point for me within the business and starting to really realize more of a bigger purpose. And I'd started the slogan of we get the junk out of your life kind of from the beginning. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head when that was, but I kind of started that slogan, probably around that March time where I started transitioning and thinking about the bigger why and the bigger picture of this business and how we can make a bigger impact. So it wasn't right initially, but I think the wheels started turning a little bit, at the beginning, and then it started working its way through, as we went in a couple months in. March was just a big transition point with the business. Like it was, that line was starting to go a little bit. January, because I didn't have much advertising marketing, to February was just a little bit better, and then March it took off, which was cool. I mean, you see something like that, and it just, it hadn't stopped since then, so which is good. So.
So, it's funny. I'm sitting here. If I'm listening to this, I'm like, great story, great success. Like, it wasn't easy.
No,
we know that. You were a law enforcement officer. You're a police officer before that, so you didn't have business experience, right? To my knowledge, shared. So, like, what were some of the difficulties, the challenges that you went through? Because everybody loves the success story,
of course,
right?
yeah.
But like, what were the licks? You said I took a first lick. This truck got rear-ended. What you breezed through that story quickly, but let's talk about some of the lessons and the struggles and the things that you overcame to get here. Yeah, because I know it wasn't as easy as we just laid it out for in the last couple minutes.
Yeah. I don't even know if I could even replicate half the stuff that I've done because it's just been there's been bumps in the road. Honestly, my first lick was the very first job I ever did. I put it out on Facebook, got my first call for the neighborhood to go out and pick up a refrigerator. It was a little mini fridge. So I'm thinking, it's a little mini fridge, not very much. Well, I didn't realize at the time the landfill charged $31 to get rid of a fridge or a freezer. And I told my son, I was like, hey, I'll give you $10 to come and help me move this thing. We'll pull it out of the basement, put it in the trailer, take it away. I charged the lady $50. So I had $9 left for gas, taking it to the landfill, paying my expenses, paying my son. I don't even think I made any money on that. So that was my first lick that I learned really quickly, is to know your pricing, know what your expenses are. And really get that dialed in as quickly as you can, because I've always heard business owners a lot of times will tinker with that for a longer period of time and try to find that market. And I also realized that don't undervalue who you are as a business owner. Don't undervalue your service, because I feel like our service is to the level that we can demand the prices, or not demand, but that we can offer the prices that some of these bigger box companies are offering, because our service level and that compassion that I talked about was to that point that we could actually do that. So that was probably my first little hit that I had, that I realized real quickly, is to make sure that you know your prices, know what you are offering, and make sure you get those things right as quickly as you can, because you're going to lose money if you're not careful. And we've been fortunate. I've been able to kind of work through some things. I did some research, and then that next hit was definitely in July when I got rear-ended, because I'm still a young business. I'm by myself. I'd hire a couple guys to come and help me, pick up a couch. I'd pay them $50. Hey, come help me move a couch. I just need some help.
You made my son some money doing that.
I did.
Big
yes.
Football muscles out there.
Absolutely. So he helped me out on some demo stuff and some different jobs. So that was good. And that was a big hit for me, because a small company, I couldn't, I didn't have a whole lot of money, or anything like that. And so we were able to work through it. But yeah, that was some of the biggest, licks. And then especially like even working with employees and stuff like that, that's been a big challenge for me, knowing. One of the big things that I've noticed is sometimes, as a business owner, you want to save some money. You want to save money by not hiring employees. But then every time that I've done that, every time that I've been like, no, I can handle this myself, I'm working until 9 o'clock at night. I'm, working a whole lot harder than I probably would have if I just hired an extra guy and let them go take care of it and let me do the things I need to be doing. And we're actually in that point right now, because we're still a small company. We do a lot of jobs. We've been extremely busy lately. We've had, long nights and everything like that. And I'm just in that place where I've got to just make a decision on how I'm going to expand from here. I'm kind of in a growing pain spot right now, to be honest with you. And so that was another learning lesson, is sometimes you need to just go ahead and hire that person and have them come and help you, and then it'll all be okay.
Do you think you're still the bottleneck? Like, even though you've hired people, do you hold on? I do. I hold on to that control a little bit.
Oh,
it's like, I trust you. Think.
Yep, there is definitely some of that, to try to relinquish some of that, because it's your baby. Just like, you're obviously an entrepreneur, you've done a lot of different businesses, and man, to see where you've come from, you that's your baby. And, I built this thing from the ground up, and everybody's, as Rob said, Mike is the face of the business, and I am, but at the same time, I've got to start trusting my guys that I've trained to go out here and do their job and take care of customers. And one way I've noticed if they're taking care of customers is when we start getting good reviews. We have over 180 some, 5-star reviews in our company in 2.5 years. And we're striving to get, by the end of August, want to get to 200 Google reviews. Awesome. I try to get my guys to, hey, let's get 5-star reviews. It means that they're obviously doing their job. They're taking care of the customers taking care of the business by referring and, giving us calls back and things like that. So, yeah, there's things you hold on to, but you got to start relinquishing some of that control a little bit, but it's definitely not easy.
Well, and as a men of faith, both of us, I ran into Rob, and I didn't know that he goes to church over here,
absolutely.
So I ran into him, and it took me a minute. He's like, hey, I was just out at your house, and we started, connecting and talking, and he's got such a respect and admiration of you and your story and what you're doing. But it was really interesting just to hear him talk about, from an employee standpoint, how you integrate your faith into your business.
Yep.
not you as the owner talking about that, but your employee, your team member talking about you when you're not there. So I was super impressed by that.
Yeah, for sure.
But just talk about how your faith has played a role in this whole story we've talked about, the transition out of law enforcement, jumping into the business. You're a cliff jumper. Yeah. Sounds like from what we've talked about and the comments, Janelle's like, hold on, do you have a parachute? Like, let's measure the parachute. So how did that all come in as you're taking these licks and you're having this, this massive excitement, and then you get rear-ended and you have the roller coaster?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, as an entrepreneur, you're kind of that visionary. You're someone that looks at, that picture down the road and you see this picture that maybe nobody else is seeing. You see that vision nobody else is seeing. Rob loved him to death. We've worked together he's worked for me over a year now. We've been friends for a long time. As much of a visionary as he is in the business, I don't think he definitely doesn't come up to where I am and what I looked forward to. So I think just a big factor in that, and it's really helped with Rob, obviously us both being, our Christian faith has been huge for us, and trusting that, the steps we're making are the right decisions. And if we do make a mistake, we figure out how to fix it and get it right. And just trusting God that the things we're doing is the right decision and we're making the right, steps. And I think that's a big trust factor for Janelle, my wife, and just having her trust me that, hey, I know this is tough right now. I know it's a difficult situation, because we've had those things come up and she may not see some of that stuff. And it's like, she has to have that trust factor in me that I'm putting my faith that, trusting God that things are going to work out the way that I want to see them work out. And that with the faith thing, I had a conversation with a gentleman who's kind of been a mentor for me for a long time. And, he actually kind of slapped me in the face one day and he said, I see a lot of stuff you put up is about you and it's about the business and stuff. And he's like, where's the part about God? Where does God fit into your business? And I think that's huge. And if you don't keep that in the forefront, especially as a Christian business owner, you're not going to succeed the way that maybe God had wanted you to. And
did you realize you were doing that before you slapped you in the face?
Not really.
We both need to be slapped in the face. We're those kind of guys.
Yeah,
we've talked about that.
Yeah, I definitely need to be slapped in the face and it's not with bad intention, right? I mean, it's not that you're having any bad intention. You're not meaning that me, look at me and all the things I've done. It's not that. It's just how you put it out there and giving credit where credit's due, and. Obviously God's given us the gift and the ability to do certain things. I feel like my ability to work, my ability to make some good decisions from years of law enforcement has definitely helped me. But, just trusting him and just to make those good decisions and stuff. So, and then putting the credit where it needs to be, because I think that it's not about me, and that's where I think that we are able to help our customers so much more. I could tell you story after story about Rob, and he's been a huge piece to me within my business. But I had a customer who told me the other day, it was about 2 months ago, he said, outside of doing the junk removal side, he actually made a phone call back to her and said, hey, I just want to check in. How's your mom doing? Those types of things set you apart. And I think that's part of that thing that sets us apart from other companies, kind of going back to that a little bit. And that's the Christian side that what God wants to see us do. And that's just him. That's his genuine person that he is. And that's a huge eye opener for me as a business owner. And I'm his boss technically that he's taking those steps to do those things to help people out. It's taking a step further than just picking up people's junk. So.
And I know as a business owner, some of the biggest lessons that I've learned, or blind spots that have been exposed. I mean, it's a team member. I just see something they do, and wow, hold on a minute. I'm not doing that. I could be doing better. Yeah. And you see that they may not even realize that you've seen it, right? I mean, it's cool to see your employees grow. You see your employees doing some positive things and making huge impacts, probably bigger impacts than we realize. In law enforcement, I felt like, and I know I made impact. I know I made an impact on a lot of people's lives, but you don't necessarily reap those rewards and some of that. You don't have the person comes back in 10 years and say, hey, you kept me out of jail, or you kept me from doing any more drugs, or you kept me from, whatever that situation was. Yeah. You may not get those things, but with this is a different way. When I told you I feel like I couldn't help anybody anymore, I felt like at least I felt like that. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how I felt. I felt like that with this, we were able to make a huge impact, with people. I mean, we're working on a house right now. It's a huge clean house. It's going to take us almost 3 days. My guys are working on it right now. And the impact that we're going to make for these realtors is going to be huge, because it's going to allow them to be able to take care of this property and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to see the impact that you make on people, a lot
in a different way. So.
Do you have a top story in your last 2.5 years of business, most memorable, biggest impact, most impactful clean out, where like you touch somebody, you know?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It's probably as of recent. It's the one I was just talking about that we just did a clean out. It was a total of 15 trailers that we cleaned out of this house. We tore down a couple sheds. Family lived there for probably close to 30 years. I've never seen the impact of just the stress from the family. There's a lot of different dynamics that I won't go into with that. But there's a lot of different dynamics that were happening with my customer. Well, technically, it was two sisters, their customers, that was making on them, and some of the negative side effects for them, and the stress that was going on. And so that was probably one of the most impactful things. It's really, as of recent, literally within the last week. And I've had other ones as well that were similar, but this one's just a big thing because it was 15 trailers. We were able to pull out of this house, and they weren't able to be able to do it themselves. And they called us, and we talked about what it was going to cost them. They didn't care because they felt the genuineness from me when I was able to talk to her, and she was ready to hire us right away and get the job done. So, which is cool. And it'll be a bond that'll last for a long time because I want them to reach out to me. I want to still stay in contact with them, and I know that impact was pretty tough. They were having a lot of stresses, and this is a huge weight off of their shoulders. I had a deadline to make that I had to make sure that deadline was made because they had to have the house listed by a certain time, and I had to make sure that was cleaned out so that way that the rest of the steps they needed to get that house listed was going to happen because of the situation. So, yeah, that was huge job, but also just a huge impact on me. And it was just cool to see, how they responded to my crew and that type of thing. So yeah, it's cool.
If your life or business are cluttered up with junk right now, then you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts Hauling. Hulk Addicts can come out to your home or business to do anything from removing junk to appliances. Maybe you're demoing or doing construction on a property and you need it cleared out. Maybe you need a big dumpster dropped off that they can roll off later. Make sure to check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. They are serving all of northern Colorado as well as up and down the Front Range. Hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals, and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground-up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife Emily and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com. Hey, if you're a Christian business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian peer advisory group where we get together on a monthly basis to discuss everything that's important in our life, our business, our families, and our faith. I'm a member and I love being a part of this group. You've got to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. When you go to their website, make sure you check out their Refresh event, which is happening January 11th through the 13th, 2024, up in Estes Park. That can be found at thefoundryadvisory.com/refresh. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to dig into, because we talked over it really quick, but your wife, Janelle, in a serious car accident.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that post, and we were chatting offline, leading up to that and after that, and talk a little bit about that. Like, how did that impact just marriage and business and life, and what did you guys learn from that? Because I know now you guys came out stronger.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
but that was a tough time.
It was tough. So I got the call early that morning, December 22nd of 19. I got the call early in the morning that she had actually I had the PD phone downstairs, and I missed the phone call from that because I have my personal phone. I figured she'd call me if something, she needed something. And I just woke up, I had a weird feeling. So I went down, checked my phone, no phone calls, no nothing. And then I went downstairs, and of course I had my phone had blown up. Sergeant from Weld County had given us a call and said, "Hey, your wife has been involved in a car crash. You need to give me a call back." They had already called the police department. One of the sergeants, Sergeant Avenger, ended up coming to my house and was trying to get me to come to the door because I hadn't answered or anything like that. And so yeah, it was a tough night. She was head on by a drunk driver. She had sustained quite a few injuries. She was bleeding internally. She lost her spleen, left. Femur was completely fractured. Had to put a rod in her femur, crushed both of her right heel and the left metatarsal on top of her foot. She had fractured vertebrae. So she was in ICU for about 3.5 days. And keep in mind, it was December 22nd of, right before Christmas, 3 days before Christmas. Yeah. So she was in ICU for 3 days, 3.5 days actually. My kids didn't see her for almost 3 days, which was really tough because at the time it was starting to be flu season it was right before COVID hit. So COVID hit like that spring. So they didn't get to see her for 3 days. Finally, I was able to talk on Christmas Eve. I was like, "Hey, can you please just make an exception for my kids to come back and see their mom?" And they got to come back there for like 5 minutes. And then the next day, Christmas Day, we were able to get her out of ICU and put her into the regular part of the hospital where she spent about another, I think, 12 days, if I remember right, something like that. I think it was around 10 to 12 days that she spent in the hospital, had to have a surgery, later went into the rehab hospital. She was in the hospital between the rehab hospital, the regular part of the hospital for a total of 31 days. She still was not, she had to have surgeries on her heel to get that reconstructed. They had to let the swelling go down before they could even do the surgery. Had to do another surgery on her left foot. So she had pretty significant surgery she had to have. Even the day that the crash, they did the emergency surgery, got her spleen taken care of, removed that, stopped the bleeding. And then that night they did the femur. But it took quite a bit of time. It was about 2 weeks before they could even do her foot surgeries to get that back. And she's a bodybuilder, so she does bodybuilding competitions.
Yep, she's active. She's getting out there. She's working out every day.
Yeah, every day. I mean, literally 5-6 days a week she's out there and eating right, taking care of her body. She had already done 3 bodybuilding competitions. She had actually qualified for nationals. So she was trying to go to get nationals to get her pro card, to earn her pro card. And so she was actually in prep for nationals when this accident happened. And so obviously it was funny because the night that I went to the hospital, I walked up to the bed and she's like, "Well, I guess I'm not going to nationals this year." But that's her mentality. Is she's probably one of the toughest women that I know. I mean, she's just a beast, and I mean that in a very feminine term. But she's just she's so strong-willed, and after she was able to get out of the rehab hospital and get home, she didn't walk for another couple months. It wasn't until March that she walked. So it was 3 months total that she didn't get to walk. We took her to the gym. She's in her wheelchair wheeling while she's got a sled behind her. Still have videos on Facebook and pictures of her wheeling a sled behind her, just getting any kind of workouts. She had her cast on her feet and she's at the gym working out. And, so, it was a big eye opener for us. There's a lot of, things that I held on to for a long time and dealing with that and the struggles that you have because you always want to take their spot, but you can't. You have to do everything you can to protect them and take care of them. And I felt, in a way, the first time in my life, I felt helpless. I felt like, I've controlled all kinds of situations. I've been involved in, bad accidents. I've had to give death notifications, all kinds of stuff. But this one was a tough one when you get the phone call and it's your
You're
wife.
on the other side of it, right?
Yeah. And then you got not only the aspect of your wife and some of the she's been really good. She's, some PTSD, not really a whole lot of that. Every once in a while she'll have some things that come up, but the kids has probably been one of the biggest impacts because anytime she goes out to dinner with a friend or something like that, the kids don't like it. They worry about her. They give her a call. It's a stress for them because they don't know that mom's, last time this happened, mom didn't come home for 31 days. Yeah. And it's someone's bad decision of having way too much to drink and marijuana. And it was, a bad situation. He ended up being killed. He was killed on impact. So, but thank God my wife and her friend both survived. And, there's some things there that, it was a struggle, mentally for me, as a man, someone hurt your wife like that. It's not a, but then again, you have to go back to your faith side of it and knowing, what I believe with my Christian faith, I have to, you have to forgive. The Bible clearly says you must forgive in order to be forgiven yourself. It clearly talks about that. And that was a struggle for me for a while. It was probably a good year at least. So,
and I love that you're so real, because it's like, I know the Bible says that, but I'd want to go kill that guy again.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, seriously. So just talk about that. Like those two voices, because I have them every day, in business and leadership and family, and just you're dealing with pressure and stress and everything out there. And you're like, oh, I'll smack this person around.
Right.
Wait, hold on. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to, represent God and my faith and what I stand for? So how do you deal with that? Like, what were some of the things that were honestly going through your mind after that?
Man, I tell you, I told, my buddy Jed, which was the husband of the girl that was hit, and he's a retired Marine, big military guy, worked in the oil field for a long time. And dude, I tell you, when I talk about two broken men, and some of the conversations that we had, I'm like, man, I'm glad. I hate to say this, but I'm glad he's dead. Because there's nothing that would have ever happened to him if he had survived that would have, been these are thoughts that I had. These are feelings that I had. This is not right or wrong or whatever, and I don't care. It's what I had. There was no justice, that would have come outside of that. And, obviously looking back now, man, it's a shame that he made those decisions because he lost his life. And I feel bad for his family and stuff like that now too. I think that's where you get that reality check a little bit. And, but there was a period of time when it went a little bit dark, and I was just like, man, just a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness. Not necessarily God. I wouldn't say that at all, because I understand that. But the sinful, the dark side of humanity, those thoughts are tough. And, but you get through them and you work through it, and if I can help somebody now, like be able to help them work through some of that stuff. I've been there, I've struggled, I've had those struggles, and, it's good. I mean, it's better now, obviously, a lot of time has gone by, but it's not a time that I don't think about it. There's not a day that probably goes by that I still don't think about that. And, how sometimes those decisions can affect you, what he did. So yeah, it was tough as a man, but I think being a believer, and just putting my faith in God ultimately, and surround yourself with good people that are of like faith, it helps you get through those times without a doubt. You can't survive it alone if you're going to go crazy. So
no.
Yeah. I mean, our families are strong Christian people, her family, my family, and that was huge support through a lot of that stuff too. And great friends, obviously.
So now a couple of years out of that,
yeah,
we're about 4 years out of that.
Yeah.
What were some of the big lessons other than what you've just shared? I mean, obviously a tremendous deep faith in God, not taking things for granted.
Yeah.
What were some other big takeaways from that? And how did you come out on the positive side of that big adversity?
I'll tell you, I think a lot of it had to do, and I'll be real careful not to get too emotional, because there's still an emotional side that goes up with it. But just seeing my wife, what she overcame, I look back on how she overcame so many things where she was, she was taking care of her body, she's working out, and all of a sudden in a matter of a split second, those things change. I think that was the biggest takeaway that I had, was to see her transition from, this beautiful, well-built bodybuilding lady to broken, bruises and just broken beyond belief, and can barely get out of the bed and can barely move, to now, seeing where she's come and how she's come back from such a tragic, tough event, to get back on stage. She's been in 2 bodybuilding competitions since. Still got hardware inside of her body, but she got more hardware because she went back and she won part of her class on both events. She did one class in March of last year, and then turned around like a month later and did another class and got qualified for nationals in a whole separate class. It just shows you her dedication. And, so I realized, I'm like, if my wife can do that, if my wife can push herself to that point through a lot of pain, a lot of, anger and anguish and everything else, then I can do it. And so that was my biggest takeaway, is like, man, if she can go through that, I can push myself. So I decided last year, we haven't even touched on this yet, I decided last year at 39 years old that I was going to start playing tackle football again. And
we didn't touch on the football yet. Yeah,
so that was part of the motivation, was like, man, if she can go through all that, she can struggle with that, I'm going to do something I haven't done since college. And, I was in high school and college, played football, and I've coached football for a long time, and realized that, I could go back and play some football and take
You
care
can't
of
be this big and not play football. You know, until I
right.
met you, I'm like, what position did he play in football?
Right, exactly. So, I went back last year and played. I was left guard and ended up getting hurt the second game of the season. Blew out my patellar tendon in my knee, which is obviously it kind of reverted back to her injuries. Not nowhere near severe, but it was a setback because I had this business that I was running, and so I think the takeaways that I had is that I'm able to apply that the things that happened to her and how she overcame and her mentality on things really helped me to push myself a little bit more. And I think that's what drives me in business right now. I think is that constant drive and pushing, and we're gonna do what we got to do to succeed and to hopefully in the end we're gonna win, and do well, with this thing. So just keep pushing and pushing. So yeah.
So you shared so much. I mean, your transition into business, leaving secure employment, taking licks, big car accident, big struggle. You've got this strong faith. What do you tell a business owner that's just getting started, or they're in a struggle right now? Like, what kind of advice do you have for them that you haven't shared yet?
Yeah, I think that with all the things that I've seen, is the ups and downs. There's so many ups and downs in business, as you know. Sometimes those downs are really, really low, and then sometimes 2 seconds later, those highs are amazing. It's this crazy adrenaline rush. I would say stay consistent, stay focused on what your goal was when you originally started this business. And I think I revert back to that even still 2.5 years later, is revert back what my purpose was originally. Find what your purpose was in starting that business, stay in love with that and keep focused on that and keep pushing no matter the good or the bad. Don't get too excited about the great times and don't get too worked up about the low times, because if you do, it's going to eat you up and you're going to crumble and it's going to beat you up. And, I struggle with that on a daily basis. I mean, even today, it's a constant mind battle that you have to deal with. And I don't care what business owner is, you still deal with it, and you've been in business for a long time. I'm sure you deal with it on a regular basis. It gets better over time, right? Because how things go.
You see the patterns. Yeah. And I love how you said that, because, it's easy to say, well, like, we know there's the ups and downs, and like, who doesn't want to celebrate that up? And then we always tell the entrepreneur, hey, in the downs, it'll come back up, don't get too down in the downs. But you mentioned not to get too excited and too up in the ups. So talk about that a little bit, because I haven't heard too many people talk about that or recommend that.
Yeah. And I have to keep myself in check, because all the years of playing football, man, you score a touchdown, and guess what? All the other 10 guys surround that guy that just made the touchdown, and you're celebrating, you're excited, but you still got to go back out and play the next set of downs. If you get so focused on the extremely, you can celebrate it. You can celebrate with your guys. You can take them out to dinner. You can do all those things to celebrate that. You can celebrate with your customer, but you can't stay focused on that, because as soon as you start focusing on it too much, you lose sight of your business. You lose sight of all the things that you need to be doing to keep your business going. And if I get one job and it's a very good paying job, well, that's not going to sustain me for the rest of the year. That's only going to sustain me for a short period of time. And then you lose sight of your business. You lose sight of those other customers that I think you need to be serving. It's that greater purpose, that greater picture that you need to have. So I've kind of learned that is don't get too excited about the really big jobs, the ones that are really great, and get excited about them. They're cool. They're awesome. They're fun. One of our biggest jobs, we did a 5-week house demo with a very well-known renovation company here in town, and super excited about that job. And I'm gonna tell you, like, when I got that job, I was on cloud 9. But I had to also realize that wasn't the job that was going to sustain me for the rest of the year. I had to be excited about it and love it and do the best I possibly can on it, but also realize we got to keep pushing forward and going to the next jobs, as well. So that's why I say that. That's one takeaway that I've definitely had. Don't get too excited about the big times. Celebrate, but don't go crazy. So.
What would you say to somebody, in law enforcement especially, but maybe they're in another job or career where they've got that security, that certainty, but they're just done. They've lost the love. They want to jump. They've got the idea, or maybe they've had a couple of months. They've had some good numbers. Like, what would you tell them, maybe step by step, or just a couple of things looking back on your story of how to jump, when to jump? But then you made that decision with Janelle. Like, I know you didn't just come home and say, hey, I did this. You guys did that together. I know you guys. So what would you share to somebody in that position?
I did do that to a certain extent. We can go into that a little bit later. This is going to be a different story, and it's a whole different situation, but I'll explain it to you in a little bit. But I would say, because I was one of those guys, I thought I'd be a lifelong, I would retire. My dad was a police officer. He was a police officer from 1975 to 86, where he ended up passing away of cancer. So he medically had to retire because of that, so that my mom could get benefits from that. So I had a lot of background in law enforcement. My grandfather was a battalion chief on the fire department. So I had a lot of service work in my background. So I felt like that being a cop was going to be the thing I was going to do until I, hit 55, 60, whatever, retire. I think that when you find something, that it's time, don't wait too long. Don't wait too long that, you feel like you're done. When you're really done, that's a bad place for you to be, to keep trying to hold on to something you're just not passionate about anymore, because you start making bad decisions. You start making decisions you normally would have never made. And I felt like I left in a good spot of where I was at. I was done. I had a little bit left in the tank, but I knew that with this new business, and that was the hard conversation that Janelle and I had to have, was, I didn't tell you this, but I had a blood clot in March of 21 in the middle of starting this business. And so I was on light duty for about 3 months before I retired. And our game plan was I was going to be on light duty because I was on blood thinners until September. And she's like, well, why don't we just hold out till September, just wait. And I'm like, no, I was like, I don't know. But this business is booming. So I'm doing this business on the side, outside of like a normal Monday to Friday daytime, and then coming and doing the rest of it. It was tough, but when you feel like you're like, I know that if I leave, that it's at that point where it's gonna take off and it's gonna grow. And I know that if I give my 100% into the business, that it's gonna grow. You need to leave. You need to move on. Don't wait, because I can tell you that over a period of time, and there's another part to that I'll talk about too, is that if you wait too long, I feel like you're not going to succeed as much as you would if you leave a little bit earlier. When you're like, hey, I think I can do this. I really feel like I can do this, but I'm holding back because of A, B, C, and D. And just make that decision. Sometimes that jump off that cliff wasn't as big as you thought it was. It might be just jumping off that table onto the floor. Yeah. It might be just a step down. You may fall a story or two, but you know what? You figure it out. And so there's a thing in law enforcement, especially with our old agency, that you could leave. Basically, it was a leave of absence. So you could temporarily leave for up to certain, like I think it's up to a year, where you have an opportunity to get your job back. So you could come back in, like if you're looking at doing something else. There's a lot of guys and gals that have done that. They turn around and come back. But I felt like that was a tether or a strap that was holding me on, and I wasn't going to be able to put on, my full 100% effort into it, because there's always something holding you back. I could go back to that secure
safety
W-2
net, right?
job.
You're jumping, but there's a safety net, right?
Yeah, there's a safety net. And with doing this, there's no safety net. The safety net's me and what I have envisioned and what I feel like I can do. So that was something for me. And people were like, well, why don't you take a leave of absence? I'm like, because I don't want a tether. I don't want a safety net that's going to hold me back, that where I may not do as well as I know I should, because in 3 months when things died down, or even in the wintertime when things died down, I'm going to sit back and be like, man, I could go back to that cushy, which law enforcement job's not really that cushy in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people are like, oh, it's a secure job. And it's like, it's not. In this day and age, it's not a secure job like it used to be. There's a lot of variables that go into it. I could go back to that and I'd be okay. And you're going to be back in that same spot. You go back, it might be good for a month or two, but you're going to go back to that same place where you were. You don't have the passion like you did, and you're not going to succeed like you would have, if you just left it completely. So yeah, don't leave too late. You gotta make that decision sooner than later. And, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and mine's a little bit different, in some ways, but I mean, I know a lot of realtors. I know several realtors recently that have left law enforcement are now doing full-time realty, and, they're doing well. It's like, man, just trust what you can do. You're given so many skills in law enforcement. You 1 minute you're talking to some guy that's urinating and defecating on himself, to the next time you're talking to someone like yourself who is a big business person. You're a CEO, you're an entrepreneur. So you wear many hats, and you know how to talk to people. You know how to carry yourself. Man, law enforcement giving you those skills, and so many jobs have given you those skills. You just got to find it within yourself, And I get excited about this stuff. I could talk about junk removal and that type of stuff all day long. I get passionate about it, and what we do. So,
well, it's so interesting, right? You just talk about the skill set that law enforcement gives you to change on a dime. I mean, you had shared a story. You're like, yeah, 10 minutes ago, this guy was crapping in the parking lot, and I had to go talk to him, and you had him detained. I can't remember what it was. And like, now we're having a high level, like, sales conversation, having coffee in a church.
Yep.
And then you're like, I'm going to go start this business. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So no, that's great. What other, like, parting wisdom would you share? You've got so many things you talked about just being a man and a leader and a father, husband, business owner. Like, what else would you share with somebody who's listening to this, who just might be, struggling, just looking for that just extra push ahead in, like, whatever it is in their life or business that they're going after right now?
Yeah. I think that you need to trust in yourself. I think that you need to trust yourself in making those good decisions, and don't second guess yourself. Don't second guess that you can't do it, because there's so many negatives that can be wrapped up into starting a business or making a job change or whatever else, man. And trust in yourself, and just know within yourself that you can do whatever you set your mind to and your heart to. I think that's huge, especially when it comes to business. Like if you're going to succeed, you got to set your mind that you're going to succeed. You can't have the negative thoughts that constantly weigh on your mind. It's cause it definitely happens, but it's that quick turnaround. I'll have negative thoughts about something, and next minute, like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I'm good. I got through that, and
do you kick those? Do you toss those out? Cause I know for me, sometimes that can be hard. Like I'll have a season in there and you're just carrying on to something, like one program, one story. How do you process through that?
I don't think you necessarily kick it away completely. I think it needs to. You still got to realize that maybe that thought is there for a reason. Maybe there's something there, whether it's making a decision that nobody else understands why you're going to make it, but there might be something there that's just holding you back a little bit. Maybe keep that in the back part of your mind, but don't dwell on it. Because I think sometimes we got to take our gut instinct on stuff, and I can tell you right now, Rob or, my other guys, Jason or Nick, none of those guys understand why I'm getting ready to do what I'm doing. Just trust that what I'm saying is the right way to go. And hey, if I make a mistake, I'll own up to it. I'm not afraid to tell the guys, hey, I'm sorry, I messed up on that. I screwed up on that, whatever. I'll be the first one to say that. But at the same time, I think that as a leader, you gotta portray that trust to your guys and not let those negative thoughts just sit there and nag you, because they'll nag you for a while, if you allow them to, and that really hurts your vision. It hurts your vision as a business. I think that if you let those negative thoughts, I think in our culture, you look at the media, you look at everything else going on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and this and that, it's all negative. It's very little positive. And man, that stuff just weighs you down over a period of time. And, you can't let that stuff weigh you down, especially in business, because literally the lifeblood of so many people rely on me as a company now. I'm getting phone call after phone call each day of different jobs that I need to get done. I had another text from a realtor. Hey, I got to get a job done. Can you get it done this next week? And we're going to get it done. We're going to take care of it for them. So, that's important, that you got to realize that you got to keep that vision and keep pushing forward, not let those negative thoughts affect you as much as, some people do. And I think that's where a lot of business owners go bad, as they let the negative thoughts weigh them out too much and they no longer succeeding. So it's tough though.
One more thing I want to ask you, because I know you're going to have some great insight there, is the balance of you're the provider for the family, and you're running the business, and you've got to be dad and you've got to be husband. Like, how do you maintain a healthy relationship with your wife, with Janelle? Like, what would be some tips to entrepreneurial couples? Because unless one of you is an entrepreneur, it's just it's hard to see that from the outside and know, unless you're just in it. You know? So, like, what are some of the big tips you would give to a new business owner? They're married, they're just getting a family started, some things that you guys have learned through everything you've been through.
I even still kind of go through some of that, because I'm still so new, within 2.5 years. I'm not a new business owner, but I'm also, I'm a little seasoned, but not that seasoned. I still struggle with that. I still struggle with making sure I make that family time, because there's this balance of, I've got to get to the next job so I can make more money for the company, so I can make sure that we have food on the table and a roof over our head, and taking care of the sports that the kids need to do, and all those things. And Janelle and I just had that conversation, because Janelle's not, really directed. She's not directly involved in the day-to-day operations. So I would give someone advice of, make sure you communicate. I know communication is key on a lot of things, but I can tell you right now that if you communicate with your wife about what you're doing, sometimes they may not understand it, but hey, trust me on this and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And they see that, they know that your goals and your vision it's not about, I think there's a fine line between a business owner who just wanting to make money and have all these things and really just setting yourself up for your future with your family. There's like this really weird fine line with that. I think that it's difficult to not only provide for your family, but also set yourself up, and your ultimate goal is your family in mind. But sometimes it doesn't look like that. It looks like you're just being greedy and selfish. And, I struggle with that, and it's not that I'm greedy. I don't have fancy stuff or nothing like that, but I work really hard because I know my customers need me, and having that communication with your spouse and taking your time. Like a lot of times Janelle and I will just go out and like, hey, I'm getting away for just a little bit. Let's go grab lunch, or let's go do those little things in the middle of the day that may not be your typical date night. We try to do that periodically. We went out the other day, and I had a job that was up in Lyons, and we came back and we just grabbed a quick lunch on the way back to pick up the kids. And, just to spend some time with each other, make sure you're doing those things, because if you don't, man, you don't want to do this business alone. I'm not in this business to do it alone. I want my family, I want my wife, my kids there, and to be supportive. And so, yeah, communication without a doubt, and to spend a little quality time. Even if you don't think it's a whole lot, it's definitely a whole lot more than you think it is. So
you shared so much, man. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We're gonna do something. We're gonna wrap up here.
Yeah,
I told you we were gonna do this,
good,
right?
yeah.
So you
We talk for hours.
You came in, grabbed a color off the wall, and we do something really cool here at Gentle Art of Leadership on the podcast. Is you wrote a statement down that you want to leave with the world when you leave it. So we're gonna wrap up, and I want you to share that with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So going back into Christian faith, and my beliefs, and one of the life verses that me and my wife have always had. We've always had a life verse together. It's funny because when we first started dating back in 2002. We shared our life verse, and I was like, hey, so this is my life verse. She's like, oh my gosh, that's my life verse too. So it was that verse that we've kind of just always been able to kind of hold on to as a husband and wife. And it's Psalm 46:10. And there's a little bit more to it than just the first part of it. But the first part of it, I think, is the part that I look at, especially in business. But it's Psalm 46:10. It's a pretty well-known verse, but it says, be still and know that I'm God. And I think as a business owner, you got to be still. You got to stop and remember that God has got these things are in control. And whether you believe in God or not, or whatever, you got to realize that there's a purpose, and you got to realize that there's something there. You got to just trust. And sometimes it's hard to be quiet. It's hard to just listen. I know I want to talk a lot. I want to say a whole lot of things, but sometimes I just need to stop and listen and take things in and just trust God. I'm going through a situation right now with some vehicles that are down and struggling with some of that. And I just got to stop and, trust that what I'm going through is we're going to be okay, and which we will. I'm not worried about it. It's just the struggles. So, just be still and know that I'm God. Psalm 46:10 is life first, and try to keep that in the forefront of our business. So,
Mike, dude, an honor to have you.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for being here.
Thank you.
That's
Appreciate
a wrap.
it. Yep. Thank you so much.
Hey, if you're a faith-based father and you have a son who is entering into adolescence and manhood, you've got to check out an experience that we have June 2024. It is the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I'm going to be taking a group of men and their sons over to Spain to hike some of the most beautiful scenery through northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. We're going to hike 6 days, 70 miles, 200,000 steps, and have completely disconnected, unplugged, uninterrupted time with our sons. We are going to grow and bond and deepen our relationships with our sons through some very intentionally curated adventures, challenges, and experiences. And we're going to do so in the company of other faith-based men who have the same desire to grow and deepen their story with their son. If you're interested in this adventure with us, go to mattshoup.com, click the Go to Spain button, and check out the father-son hike of a lifetime.